The Clover root weevil appeared in New Zealand in the late 1990s. The pest attacks all parts of the clover plant, which affects pasture and livestock performance. We went to Waikato to talk with Lorraine Bilby and David Wilson of the New Zealand Clover root weevil Action Group, who've also experienced the crippling effects of the pest.
The action group was formed so that we would be able to govern the money that was coming in to the science providers, and the management side of that was done by the Landcare Trust, and between us our role was basically to oversee that the work was done according to the objectives that were set out before the Sustainable Farming Fund. Part of the education campaign was that we made a toolbox of things that you can use to help you with the impact of clover root weevil, and we produced a brochure, and on it we have identified lots of different species that will impact into your pastures along with clover root weevil, so that the farmer can take it and identify what he's got on the property.
Well, let's do it on the back of the trunk, a bit easier for that.
We set up several different types of trials. There were small plot trials, one of them which was done on this property. There were 3 in the Waikato, and then they had the wider trials in the various regions, both on the beef and sheep properties.
So this is the pupal stage. It'll develop through into the adult stage in the next couple of weeks. The adult will emerge on the surface and start feeding on the foliage, laying eggs and completing the life cycle.
When we were first hit with clover root weevil, we got ourselves into quite a predicament, and we found ourselves bringing on more and more supplement to take up that gap. And we've ended up going down that track on our particular property. So we have a high input property now, which is somewhere where we would never have gone. We had never used nitrogen on our property prior to clover root weevil, only on crops, but nothing else. Because we felt that we didn't need it. We grew a lot more grass than what we would now if we didn't use nitrogen. And, so it sort of becomes self-perpetuating in our style of farming, yes, but you've got to watch your costs very, very closely to remain profitable if you've got a high input farm.
So we've got it down to the bare roots here.
We have a bit of adult weevil damage on that leaf there.
Oh yes, there is too, yes. Oh,
We discovered that the root weevil was a major issue by talking to other farmers and neighbours, and Lorraine, who lives close to us here. And and then we formed a group to look into what was actually happening.
There's a bit of flea damage on that one.
What's interesting is the flea damage there.
And the notch.
On the notch.
It's from the 2 different bugs.
So that's a prime example of the difference between the clover flea, which is that gnawing part, and the clover root weevil, which is a totally different insect. The adult has nipped the side out of that. The root weevil larvae feeds on the roots and the nodules. I basically a all-grass farmer. It's cost us some money, but by using between 150 and 200 kilograms of nitrogen per hectare per year, and we have been able to maintain our profitability and the gross margin of the property. Though I say we apply up to 200 kgs of N, we do it over the whole year in small amounts of about 20 kgs of nitrogen at a time. And I'm very particular that we need to get a 15-to-1 response to make it profitable, thereabouts. So I'm very particular putting on where there's sufficient moisture in the ground, and obviously in the winter not too much moisture. And there again in the summer when it's dry, we need to pick our time to get it on, to get that 15-to-1 response, particularly last spring when urea got to $1,000 a tonne.
There's been considerable work done by Ag Research. They brought in a wasp from Ireland, and that has been released in small packets around the country on our property. Last year we had a 29% increase of parasitism on that 1,000 release that was done, which is very encouraging. But while it is encouraging, it's not a silver bullet. You've got to have management tools in there to keep clover in your pastures as well. The wasp will not do it on its own.
This program was made with funding from New Zealand On Air.